Happy everyone could make it. Today we're basically meeting on our plan for the next 4 weeks as to how to utilize our time best on which standards and which students that we want to pinpoint. So this is a data analysis meeting as well as a preparation for planning meeting. We do have most of our people here in attendance. Let's just make sure we all sign the attendance sheet before we go. So all persons are present minus Ms. Roman Brown, who had a manifestation meeting, so she should be here shortly. Our consensus items today basically are about which standards we need to focus in on. We realize that we do have a test tomorrow, but we can utilize our 4.5 data to kind of give us a scope of what these kids are going to do on this test, and we can look at our previous benchmarks, benchmark 1 and 2. So I think we need to basically come to consensus about how we're going to go ahead and plan out our next 5 weeks that we have left, minus spring break.
Yes.
So I've asked everybody to bring their laptops so we can look at SchoolNet, and then at this point we'll go ahead and pull up SchoolNet. We'll look at, as an action item, we'll go ahead and look at our specific standards and our specific students. As of right now, I want us to park the students. I know that's going to take a little while to aggregate the data for that, but let's specifically look at our standard analysis and see which specific standards that we fall below our marker on. And then we'll pinpoint those standards and figure out by consensus how we want to tackle those on the next coming weeks. So this is pretty much our hot topic, standards, and then we will come back and look at the kids specifically. So I think we already know SAP 1, force, balance, force, and friction. Are there any elements specifically from there that we can say, okay, they definitely have this, or they definitely don't have this, based on our percentages?
Gravitational force is a big one.
Gravitational force is huge. So I know SAP 1, I think that goes from A all the way to F, to G. Simple machines is always going to be on there. So is that G? I believe that's G.
Acceleration, velocity, that's
Yeah,
usually a big one.
That's a big one. So we can just we can come back and look at the elements, that's fine. So let's just write down our subtopics: simple machines, velocity, speed, acceleration. I would say overall our kids understand force and friction. I think the velocity and acceleration is something that we should focus more on. Is that something that you would agree based on your data?
I would agree. I think the problem with that force is that the question that we had on the benchmark about, will the wagon move faster than
I think that was a one too.
That was one that most people had wrong. But the question is that a typical question that they would
ask on the milestone, right?
Yeah, because we were all thinking.
How about, what do you guys think about parking that item, and then let's just looking at simple machines and velocity and acceleration, the two that we know really they did not get.
Right.
For the most part, we've reiterated force and friction over and over, but simple machines and velocity and acceleration, I think, are the two that we know that they really didn't get. So of SAP 1, let's put our focus there. Can we pull up a calendar and kind of map this out as well? Just see maybe how we're going to tackle this thing to map it out. Instructionally in our classrooms, we can come back and look at what's the best practices, or what teacher had the best practices based on their scores. But right now, we just need to look at our hot topics and get a schedule. So let's see, we've got to finish up electricity and magnetism within, will you finish in 2 weeks? Electricity and magnetism? How about you?
Which one, I'm sorry? Electricity and magnetism?
Right, if you get
Yes,
you get this week
yes,
and next week,
yes,
you'll be done.
Absolutely, yes. Mhm.
Okay, so if we get to finish out from this week and next week, what is that next following week? Let me see. This week was-
14th is the next week, 21st of March.
Okay, so we're looking at 3/21 to go ahead and start our remediation. I mean, to reteach, but we still have to teach conduction, convection, heat transfer. But we also need to probably be doing both at the same time, because
So it'll be conduction and convection?
yeah, it's going to be heat transfer that whole week.
Mhm.
But I say we also come back and do mini lessons on SAP 1. Okay. So that next following week would take us to 3/28. At that point, we should be done with heat transfer, and it'll pick up. They'll pick it up faster than what you think too.
Yeah.
And let's look at SAP 2 as far as those next set of standards.
That's one of the ones I was looking at.
Is that energy?
For mine, yeah. Well, energy, gravity, well, no, that's P3. Yeah, P2 is energy transformations.
Okay.
And then C, the sub-element, compare and contrast different forms of energy.
So let's,
And
is that
out of the
our week
three,
spot?
out of the three, they had the biggest problem, just
Potential kinetic.
relating to
potential
potential
kinetic.
kinetic.
Okay, so let's look at SAP 2, potential versus kinetic. Do we need a whole week for that?
I don't think so, but we could also do a whole week for it and touch on the
And
others
touch
a
on the
little
other
in there.
stuff. Okay.
Because, like, my kids, they could use a little bit of compare and contrast on the different forms of energy mixed in there too. So
Yeah.
between the two things, we could easily fill up that week of remediation.
Okay, good. All right, then that takes us to the next
Spring
week,
break.
which is spring break. We have to skip over that. However, let's all plan to do something with USA Test Prep.
I'm actually doing that as extra credit.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to give like a little module of some sort on USA Test Prep for all my students to do. We already know our good babies will do it,
Mhm.
and the other ones won't. But at least we can say that we provided an opportunity. You know,
They were
that's
No,
all we
gonna
can do.
rather, because my biggest problem is that a lot of them just don't want to log in.
Okay.
What I may do for spring break
Extra
is-
credit for logging in.
No, I may just print it out and give them a packet.
That's the question I wanted to ask. So you're saying that you had trouble with people logging in? You asked them
Not
to
that
do
they
it.
have trouble logging in, they don't want to.
They don't
They
want.
don't
They don't want
want
to get
to do
on.
it.
Yeah, they don't want to get on.
Because see, my USA
But
Test
see-
Prep was strictly
The difference in
extra
that-
credit. I was like, look, guys, I'll put up an assignment every week about something we've been going over to use it as remediation. I'll give you 10 points of extra credit to a low grade every time you do one.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I've got 100 students, and I've got maybe 6 of them that have done
That
extra
is,
credit.
if they're interested in that. See, I understand what you're saying. I told mine that we're gonna have class party.
Yeah.
Not pizza party,
Class
but
party.
you know, class party is on the
Yeah.
USA Test Prep. So everybody is signing in because they wanna have class party.
Yeah,
Now, it sounds fun and exciting, but of course they're gonna be doing work.
yeah.
That's really what it is. But you'd be surprised that, you know,
I
that
know.
early they don't wanna do the work.
They don't.
So you gotta trick them into it.
Well,
Class
I tell you
party
what.
sounds good.
I tell you what. We'll come up at the end of this meeting. We'll try and strategize some ways to incentivize our students. If that means going by Sam's and going to get some candy, some chips, something.
Yeah.
You know, these kids can be easily motivated by a little sugar, a little hot Cheeto. So we'll do exactly that, and we'll incentivize them as needed. That brings us to 4/12, 4/16. That's our next week. And that puts us at SAP 3.
4/11 would be the Monday after spring break.
Okay.
As HP3?
I'm pretty sure. I think
9th,
the Monday
10th,
was-
11th. 12th is the
Yeah.
12th.
No, the 4th is the Monday of spring break.
Okay.
So the 11th is the Monday after spring break.
So the 11, 4/11 through 4/16?
4/15.
4/15.
All
That's the
right.
week after spring break.
Looking at,
SP3.
yep,
The lowest, the worst that they did was on element D, demonstrate the effect of balanced, unbalanced forces on objects in terms of gravity, inertia, and friction. And they did equally bad on, no, that's 5. Forget that was just P3. Yeah, that was their worst on P3 by a large margin.
okay, so gravity, inertia, and friction. Okay. All right.
And then second to that was determine the relationship between velocity and acceleration, which we're gonna hit.
We're gonna hit in the first one.
Yeah.
Hello. This is.
And then, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, because the following week is the start of the window.
4/18.
4/19 is the.
So, but we can still study in that.
Yeah.
We got, so we got 4,
4/18 is that Monday, and 4/19, the Tuesday is the first day in the window for milestones. We're not starting on the 19th, I don't think.
okay, so 4/18 to 4/22. At that point, we just gotta hit P4 and P5.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, for
Excuse
our
me,
next
call Mr.
agenda
Vogel when you
items, Mr. Vogel, okay. For our next agenda items on next week, we're gonna look at, make sure you document this, make sure we're looking at our specific students. We're gonna look at best practices
Okay.
to see if we can develop a rotation. And we will look at any ingenuity as if we just have that group that we just did not get it, maybe we can go ahead and put them on ingenuity as a safety practice. So I think that is it as far as we've come to consensus on how we're going to map out for the next couple weeks. We know what our action items are for next week. We know what the agenda items are for the next meeting. Can we say we'll have the next meeting next week? Next week, same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
And as a parking lot item, we parked, and that we said we would come back to on the next week. We'll look at incentivizing our kids on how we can get them to do this USA test prep and how we can get them to do anything we want them to. So we'll look at that.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
Now.